Hello, thank you for watching this video. We want you to know that if you and your spouse are pregnant, if you and your partner are pregnant, and you guys are wondering what the steps are and what you're going to do next, we wanted to tell you our journey, why we picked a natural home birth, and tell you a little bit about the fact that we were probably not the ideal candidates for it, but why we enjoy the experience so much more than we think we would have enjoyed having a hospital birth. And so we're going to tell you that story.
So when we found out we were pregnant, we found out in March, and we had been talking about a home birth for a couple of years as we were talking about having kids, and we still wanted to explore what options we had. And so we explored the traditional hospital route. We explored doing the birth at the hospital, but with a midwife, and doing it naturally. And then, of course, we explored the natural home birth with a midwife. And we have family that has done a natural home birth in Madison. And so we got to talk with them and really learn from them of what their experience was like. And they recommended some midwives to us as well. And so that was really helpful. And I think, at least for me, I think that was a big reason that I considered a natural home birth, because I was able to hear from someone that I know and trust that they had a positive experience with it too.
Absolutely. So yeah, we had talked about it. We had talked about like a home birth, but we weren't realistic about it. I mean, everything that we had all seen our entire life was hospital birth. That's just what you did. You got a bag ready and you went to the hospital and you got induced and you went through labor and the doctor said push, and then there was a baby and you look at them through the glass and they do all this stuff and then you go home. Best case scenario, right? But for us, there were factors that pushed us towards even like thinking about it more than just like, oh, hey, like, what do you think about home birth? It was one of those things where we found out that Kate was pregnant during the beginning of the pandemic. We knew somebody, like she mentioned, who had a home birth. And so we were just like, well, let's interview some people. Like, worst case scenario is we don't like it and we don't do it. Kate's a planner, so she came with like a notepad of 100 questions. I came with my intuition. Like, I was like, I'm going to just fill these people out.
And I think that was a really good mix.
Yeah. Because you came with questions. I just wanted to see how that person made me feel. Because for me, it's a comfort thing. That's another thing that I think's really cool. And I don't know if people do this when it comes to hospitals and doctors and stuff like that. But like, you're interviewing somebody, you're getting a feel for what they're going to be doing and how they're going to be interacting with you throughout that entire experience. So I'll talk a little bit about the first one, and then Kate will talk about our second interview, which is the person we ultimately went with, Ingrid. So the first interview, unfortunately, I can't even remember the woman's name. It's not that she wasn't an impressive person. It was just that nothing she said moved the needle for us to say, yep, we should do a home birth. It also didn't discourage us from doing a home birth. It just kept us where we were. Like, hey, do you want to do it? It felt more like a leap of faith at that point after hers than like, we should go ahead and do it. So then we met Ingrid. Interesting thing about Ingrid, before Kate tells you about that experience, I actually had a client. So not only did our cousin also use Ingrid for her home births, but I had a client who I found out as well, used Ingrid for two of his wives' home births. So it was just kind of like, okay, well, what is the odds of that? And then we set up a meeting with Ingrid. We sat down and
yeah. I was really impressed with Ingrid, and I felt very much empowered even just in that initial interview. She is super knowledgeable. She has experience in the hospital setting, and she's been a certified nurse midwife doing just home births for a really long time in Madison too. And so just the knowledge that she had and her encouragement for me to listen to what my body is telling me too. Again, even in that initial interview, I think are the big things that really pushed me to feel comfortable with her. And at the end of that meeting, I remember looking at Kyle and we were like, okay, so what are we going to do? And we it wasn't a question for either of us. We were like, yep, we're going with Ingrid. And I just felt a lot more comfortable with the idea of a home birth, and an unmedicated natural home birth, after talking with her.
She didn't sell us.
No.
She didn't sell us at all on it.
In fact, she encouraged us to interview other midwives too. Mm-hmm. She talked about how the community of midwives in Madison is really strong, and and there's a lot of good people that could serve us through our pregnancy.
Yeah, it was just basically who we wanted. Yeah. I remember one part in particular during that interview with Ingrid where I asked a question and I said the phrase, well, when Kate delivers the baby, mm-hmm. and I didn't even think anything of it. I was just talking and she answered the question and she stopped, or actually before she answered the question, she stopped and she said, I love that you said that. And I was like, what? She said, well, you understand and realize that it's going to be Kate doing the work. It's not me. It's not you. It's like Kate's going through this and we're there to support her and make it as, a beautiful, wonderful, natural experience as possible. Mm-hmm. And to me, it was like, there's this thing in society, I feel, where the male is typically so disconnected from the idea of what's going on in this. I mean, we're there for support. We're there, but we're not super acknowledged, I don't mm-hmm. think. That for me was kind of like, cool. Like, oh, okay, well, she sees that I am connected with Kate and what I see in her and what I appreciate about her. And it just made me like, at that point, I perked up a little bit more, listened a little bit more, engaged a little bit more, and it was fun. It was fun.
I remember in that interview too, we talked a lot about the risks of home birth versus hospital birth, because that was a big thing for us. Because I think naturally for people that haven't really considered home birth, it's like, well, what if something happens and you're at home, right? Like, and so we kind of talked through that with her, and she gave us a lot of really good information and again encouraged us to consider that information and make our own decision of what was best for us.
Absolutely. So to answer some of those questions that you probably have in your mind right now, what if something happens? That's the big thing. What if something happens? Listen, we were able to set up the fact that if there were any complications, there'd be a ambulance on call to come and take us to the nearest, hospital should she have any complications. That was all set up. The other things of what if something happens? What if this? What is that? As she kind of started explaining to us how certain aspects of pregnancy and complications occur, the way she explained it, and I'm going to be slightly vague because I don't want to get into the medical mumbo jumbo of everything. But when you start thinking about and understanding how the health system, the medical system, treats pregnancy like a surgical procedure versus a natural process of what it is, you start to think like, oh, that makes sense why this occurred. Like for every action, there's an equal or opposite reaction. So when you do certain things and you have certain complications occur, they actually came from these preempted things that you were either forced into or
whatever the situation might be. But yeah, some of those like interventions can cause the need for further intervention.
Yeah. So it was the way she spoke, it was her demeanor, and it was everything. Because some people watching this right now might say, well, like, why did you believe that? Well, yeah, some of it's fate, some of it's faith, some of it's just like I said, I'm an intuition person. So Kate asked the questions, she had answers for the questions, her demeanor was always very like calm and even, and I just fed off of like understanding her energy, like talking about this and that, and it just made sense. So the way it kind of worked out, and we'll talk a little bit about the timeline, a little bit about the financial aspect of it, and then I think one of the two, I think the catalyst is the day of the birth, and then the experience of after birth, like after the day of the birth. So timeline, a little bit of how things and the structure kind of worked out, was once we got started right away, we did the in-person visit.
Yeah. 13 weeks, I think, was the first time we saw Ingrid in person. And then we had our ultrasound. Well, before that, actually, we had our ultrasound at 12 weeks.
We had our ultrasound. Now, our ultrasound got done at the hospital, but she ordered it for us. She would order the ultrasound. And so we went to the, hospital for that and got the ultrasound. And the people there would read it.
So we had 2 ultrasounds during our pregnancy, at 12 weeks for the first trimester screen and at 20 weeks for the anatomy scan. And Ingrid got all of those, like results or whatever, and went over them with us at our visits with her. And the timeline of visits is, I would say, pretty similar to what I know of like a hospital birth. And then once we hit 36 weeks, she did a home visit, and just got familiar with our space so that she knew where things were and where we were going to have the birth, before the day of the delivery. And then after 36 weeks, we saw her every week until he came.
Yeah. And I mean, so, you wonder too, like, we're going to these visits and we're not going into a hospital. I mean, we're going to, her office. And it's very relaxed. And the whole thing is just like, when we sit down, you don't sit down and feel like you're getting diagnosed or examined. It felt like, the first time, obviously, because it's like kind of strangers, but like every time we met, like it's to the point through this, it feels like family. It feels like, oh, we're having something going on. Oh, we should invite Ingrid. Like, and it just felt like you were sitting there and she would be so in tune with like, Kate, how are you feeling? How is this? And how is this? What do you have questions about? And Kate, every week, her preparer self came with questions and Ingrid answered them. And I made it to every visit but one.
Yep. And she would check in with you too, and us as a couple, like just generally how we're handling COVID, how we're handling like not being able to see friends and family, in addition to the stuff directly related to pregnancy and our questions for that.
Right.
it's a
And
very holistic thing.
Yeah. And I mean, we like from my end, you know, she always made it like it always started with Kate, like because she's the one that's pregnant, but she always made sure to ask me like if I had questions or concerns or this and that. And sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't, and I just listened and just took things in. And you know, we got she suggested vitamins. We got all the vitamins. We started taking the vitamins. She explained things to us, and none of it ever felt like a procedure. None of it ever felt like we weren't supported. I mean, like truly supported. You know, it was, oh, you got questions? Text me anytime. Call me anytime. Email me anytime.
Yeah. And I think that was a big thing for me too. That she would, like, she herself was available to us, and we didn't have to call a doctor's office and leave a message with a receptionist and then wait for a call back from a doctor. And like I could just email her or text her directly, and she would get back to us with the answer. It's just so easy. And so, I don't know. It just feels, it makes the whole process feel more comfortable, I think.
Yeah. Text and phone calls were pretty much answered within the hour if they weren't like responded to right then and there. You know, emails, kind of the same thing. You know, and she was really transparent about the fact too that if he came like during one of her other births, that we might get a different midwife. And so from the get go too, we had Ingrid, and the first one we met was Miranda.
Yep.
And Miranda was going to be there as well. Like, so we had this where the whole time we were building a relationship with two different people who every meeting were there, like, you know, like meeting us. And then Johanna came in later too. And so now we're this big happy family of people. And, you know, also let us know, hey, she takes on, at least Ingrid did, she takes on she was taking on 3 births a month. So that was based on your due date. So ours was in November. So she would have 1 or 2 others scheduled that month. You know, and I think I don't know how it works in the hospital. I think that's a little bit different than in the hospital. It seems more intimate as well. And it seems like, man, you know, you get a lot of attention, a lot of care.
Yeah. And it was cool too, I think. And I've seen this progress even like as we've worked with her for longer and since he's come. But our appointments, yes, were around pregnancy questions and checking in and all that stuff. And we also had just conversations, like to build rapport and build that relationship. And I don't know, it's been really cool and I think we were able to do that because she's just so able to share information and kind of anticipate maybe like what we might want to know based on her experience. And then obviously is open to any questions that we have. But, you know, we talk about all kinds of different things, which I think is part of that, you know, and part of what's made it so comfortable and such a positive experience for us.
Absolutely. So that's, you know, that's kind of the timeline of visits and stuff. Once Emmett was born, we had, 36 weeks, we had weekly visits. Then once Emmett was born, we had some follow-up, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But getting to the financial part of it, I don't think I'll go into exact numbers of what it cost. I'll say this. I know a lot of people who've had hospital births and where their experience, and, you know, insurance will take care of a lot, but I've heard of people having anywhere from $20,000 bills to $80,000 bills for their home birth, or not for their home birth, for their hospital birth. I would say I would how do I our total experience between ultrasounds, which we had to pay for, and a midwife was it less than $5? Less than $5,000 is what we paid. And some insurances do cover midwifery and home births. Ours didn't, but we were fortunate enough to have an HSA that we have been building up over time and been really smart about. So through the entire thing, the one thing we never had to really worry about was like, oh, how are we going to pay for this? Like he was born 4 days ago and everything's paid. Everything's done. Everything's paid. We're not worried about getting any other bills. We're not worried about anything else like that.
No surprises or anything.
No surprises. It's all taken care of, and it was very manageable and very easy. And I'd venture to say the care was more personable and a lot more, gosh, man, like just a lot more individualized. You know, regardless of how many clients you had, we never felt like a number. I honestly felt like we were her only client.
Yeah.
I honestly felt like we were her only client. So now that we covered the financial part, let's talk about birth.
Amidst birthday.
Amidst birth. You wanna talk about, you know, early labor and leading up?
So Emmett came on his due date, which we were very surprised by. So I went into early labor Sunday evening, and I thought they were just Braxton Hicks contractions and maybe they would go away and he would come a little bit late. And throughout the night, they just progressed. Ingrid encouraged me to eat dinner and go to bed and get some rest in case this was the real thing. She thought that I was in early labor based on what I had described to her. And so throughout the night, Kyle and I did not get very much sleep. My contractions increased in frequency pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like within maybe 3 or 4 hours. And then within like an hour from there, they were every like 2 to 4 minutes and getting stronger.
Yeah.
And
I'd like to, before you go into that too, just something that kept playing in my head that Ingrid told us several times once like labor might have been a real thing was like, hey, get sleep. She even told us when they came and then, you know, went back and then came back, like, get sleep. Sleep's the most important thing. You're going to wish that you slept. Build it up so that you can go into it. And you know, she didn't say it as intensely as I just said it. She said it very calmly, but that kind of stuck in my head. Like, we need to get sleep, which makes absolute sense. She was really right. Make sure that whether you're having a hospital birth or you're having a home birth, make sure the minute you start feeling contractions, eat some protein, go to bed, get sleep, and husband or partner, go to bed. Do not stay up, you know, doing anything else. Like, you'll think, okay, I'll stay up, I'll watch TV or read or play video games or whatever you might do. Don't do it. Go to sleep.
Yeah. Just to like backtrack a little bit, I guess, when I was experiencing those early contractions, I was texting with Ingrid and she explained to us how it would progress and what to expect so that when my contractions did increase. We knew what was happening, and we knew, I think we had a good idea of how soon we would need to call her. And Kyle was texting her when I was going through contractions and they were increasing in frequency and strength. And so she was just so available to us through the whole thing.
At that point, I took over communication.
Yeah.
Because I wanted her to be able to focus on being able to breathe through the contractions, being able to like find a position that she could lay in that would be most comfortable for her. So from my perspective, if I got advice for guys or spouses or partners out there who has somebody going through labor, like your most important role is support. And what that support looks like. I'm so glad I did a home birth because I think you're allowed that support. You're allowed to give that support better with a home birth than you are with a hospital birth. Because you can, like, whether you have it at home or whether you have it in the hospital, like, there'll be a point where you feel like no matter how much you're supporting, you feel helpless, but it's not the same. So, like, as she mentioned, she was texting with Ingrid, and at this point, it's midnight.
Yeah, when they got stronger.
Yeah.
Like, super, yeah, super close.
And then we were texting, like, because then they came.
Yeah, they came around, I want to say, like, 3:15 in the morning. And they got all their stuff set up. I had been laboring in our bed, and that, like, I feel like that's priceless. Like, Kyle got to be in bed with me. He, like, whatever position felt good through every contraction, through the entire labor. Kyle was holding my hand. I told him after Emmett came, I'm like, oh, I finally get to hold your hand normal without like squeezing the heck out of it. And, you know, and then we moved into the guest room, which is where we had him once Ingrid and Johanna came. And so they got all their stuff set up. They supported us through some of those contractions and kind of described to Kyle what would help labor progress, different positions, how often to switch positions, so that he could help me so that I wouldn't even have to think about, okay, how long has it been? What do I need to do next? Kyle was really able to monitor that and encourage me to switch positions or, you know, help me get in positions, whatever. And he was able to, again, lay there with me the whole time and hold my hand through contractions.
I think something I want to add to that, because you're getting at one point during this part, Ingrid, Johanna, they left. Like, they had come, they left, they went back, and they tried to get some sleep before the show really got started. Now, you may think to yourself, you're sitting here thinking, like, she's going through labor, like, da da da, like, what? And they're leaving. I want to commend Ingrid and her team, Johanna and Miranda, because this is the thing. In a situation like that, when you're going through that and you've never experienced it before, your want to escalate is so there. Like, Kate could have escalated and she could have about any little thing and started like freaking herself out. Like, she's never experienced this. What's going on? I could have started freaking out, like, before. But what they understood, having seen it so much, their ability to talk with us and conversate with us in a certain way just was phenomenal. Because, we had this app that's telling us, go to the hospital, go to the hospital, go to the hospital. This is the time where you would go to the hospital. And she's basically saying, like, this is where you're at. Like, we've got all this set up. We've got all the support. She said, right now, what you need to do is you need to get into try these several positions. And between contractions, try to fall asleep. Try to just get sleep between contractions. She said, because you're gonna need it. So,
and she said, they left because she's like, the last thing you guys need right now is for us to be, potentially like interrupting that sleep, because it was too early really for them to be there. And they couldn't have done anything really that Kyle wasn't doing.
Yeah. Nothing was going to speed it up
through labor. Right.
Nothing was going to speed it up. But I say to people, to spouses, husbands, partners, I think, I'm okay patting myself on the back. I think another reason they were okay to leave is because they did see that I was supporting her. And I think in some cases people don't, or and so then they stay and they would do the support of the holding the hand and the, okay, try this position, and monitoring her and telling her to sleep. Okay, now waking her up, it's time to change positions and do this. But not only as a person like that's there supporting, do you want to do it as support? It is the coolest feeling to be so, once you get, because you literally get so in tune with what she's dealing with that I knew when a contraction was about to come. Like, she didn't even have to say it. I knew when a contraction was about to come. I knew, like, I could breathe in a way that she would just start breathing like I was breathing. I could look at her in a way that she would like lock my eyes and we would just communicate that way. And so it was just like experiencing that whole thing. It was this like aura connection that I had never experienced with you before.
Yeah. Yeah. It really gave us an opportunity to connect on a super, super deep level. Because it was such an intense experience. I think for both of us in different ways. But yeah, I couldn't have done it without Kyle. He was, I mean, you should pat yourself on the back, because like just having, it didn't take the pain of the contractions away, but it helped me to endure the pain through each contraction, like holding his hand. And like he said, I would get kind of caught up in the pain of it and have a hard time getting through it. And he would remind me like to look at him. So I would look in his eyes and he would breathe with me, because I wanted to breathe really fast through the contractions, which wasn't helping anything. And so he helped me to regulate my breathing. And it was the most helpful thing in the world.
It was a great experience.
And like we got to have a playlist. Like he made a playlist for labor, and so we got to listen to that and music that like means a lot to us, and that helped get us through too.
So they left.
Yeah.
We actually were like, when they left, we were laying down, we were getting some sleep. We were actually sleeping between her contractions.
Yep.
It was really good. And then, I want to say you started feeling like you probably wanted them to come back probably around like 7-ish. And at that point, like I was kind of like, I was like, this is going to sound weird. But at that point I was like, I think you got another hour in you, babe. Like, just because kind of, again, you become very in tune with the contractions, how long they're going, what's happening and stuff like that. And I also knew that like her water hadn't broke yet. And if we did call them back again, there was nothing that they were going to be able to do to speed up the process that I wasn't already supporting her with. So she was like, okay.
And I just want to add that that's super helpful too, because I think if it was, I was in the, I I was experiencing those intense pains of contractions. And so I don't think I had it in me to say like, yeah, I can do this for another hour if Kyle hadn't been so in tune with that. And like, you know what I can handle, right? Like you wouldn't have said that had it, had you not thought I was able to get through it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing with that is makes a really good point of what happens in hospitals when I think women are encouraged to get epidurals or anything like that. At that point, you know, how much support do they have to understand that they may or may not really need that at that point? I'm not going to pretend to know what she experienced as far as a pain threshold. And I wasn't making that decision for her. I knew that we were in for a ride. Mm-hmm. And so my thought process was like, if I can support her and help coach her through this next hour, what she'll see is that, oh, an hour ago, I thought I couldn't do it. And an hour later, I did it.
And we went longer than an hour, right?
Yeah. Yep. It was like 2.
Yeah. And then my water broke.
And then our water broke.
And that was, what, like 9?
Almost 9.
Yeah. And that's, I feel like that's the
9.
point maybe that things got like super intense for me.
Yep. So her water broke, which was, so it's not like the movies. Or it did not happen like the movies when her water broke. It was very much like, she goes, I think my water broke. Either that or I'm peeing myself. We check and, yeah, I think your water broke. Yeah. So at that point, the contractions did get a lot stronger.
Mm-hmm. And that shortly after that, I think I said, okay, I need Ingrid here now. Mm-hmm. And you called her.
Yep. I called her.
You want to talk about your experience right then?
Oh, yeah. What?
You thought you were going to have
Oh, yeah. So I called Ingrid. I said, hey, her water just broke. I think it's about, I think it's, she's ready for you guys to come back. She had mentioned it. And the way things were working out, like I thought, I had never experienced anything like this before. Mm-hmm. And the way things were kind of like, her body was kind of reacting and stuff. I was like, oh crap. Like I'm about to catch this baby like right now. And we had her get in the shower and, I'm getting ready and like everything like this. Cause we didn't have her get in the shower just for the birth. She wanted to, like water helps. So like she had gotten into the bath. She had gotten into the shower. It just kind of like helped her body like regulate or react, or I don't know the medical term, but it soothed her.
Yeah.
So I thought I was going to catch the kid at that point. They came while she was still in the bathroom because we had then moved from the our bed to our master bathroom. And only to figure out that like, nope.
We still had
we still had almost
8 hours or something.
Yeah. We still had a long time, which was really odd. Mm-hmm. Really, really odd.
So at that point, Ingrid set up the birthing pool, which was something I really wanted. Like Kyle said, water can help like soothe or some of the pain, just help like get through some of the contractions. Yeah, that was a big thing. I was able to just like fluidly move into different positions. That was something that was really hard for me like outside of the water. I hated when everyone was telling me I had to move into a new position because it was always a position too that hurt more. but was necessary to progress labor. So I think what did I get in the pool? Like 3 times throughout labor. And it was helpful. I mean, the contractions were still super intense in there, and Kyle was right there. He got in the pool with me the first time. And then he was right there, like at the edge of the pool, holding my hand through every contraction.
And then you get up with her to go to the bathroom, and
yep, he was there.
You get up with her to get back into the bed, and hot and cold. You got hot and cold.
Oh yeah, lots of like shivers, and then really mostly during a contraction.
So during a contraction, she'd get really hot. So she was like, okay, it'd be so funny because we'd have a towel on her forehead and like a towel on her back or her neck, right? A cold one, like during a contraction. But then, like after that contraction passed, a little bit after that contraction passed, she'd get cold. So we'd take the thing off and she's like, where's a blanket? So we put the blanket on her, and then she'd have a contraction again and she'd like just throw the blanket off. She'd throw the blanket off.
Dramatic.
Yeah, very dramatic. And if you know Kate, she is not dramatic. So she'd like throw that off, and then she'd need the towel and stuff like that. We'll fast forward through kind of some of the other stuff to just let you know, like that entire experience, it's a long process. I think a lot of people, I think there was unknowns, right? There were unknowns that we didn't know, but I think a lot of people in the hospital, they're comforted by the fact that they can get this test, understand the progress. Oh, this person can check every time you're dilated, like, oh, you know, like, and so when you're in the hospital, not only can that person check it, it's great peace of mind, but it doesn't move the needle. All that does is gives you a kind of a peace of mind. And if you're like, oh yeah, I've been here, and they go, well, you're 6 centimeters dilated. Well, you got 4 more centimeters to go. Like, you're going to be there for a while.
Yeah.
And all you just did was rack up your bill more.
Yeah.
Because they have to go in and look at that.
And just to talk to you about like how they monitored Emmett during labor, like they listened to his heartbeat through a contraction to see how he was handling it. They listened, I think, every 10 minutes, right, to his heartbeat, just to make sure that it was still strong and he was doing well. They monitored my blood pressure and my pulse. I don't know if there were other things that they monitored on me.
Well, throughout the entire pregnancy, which we didn't really talk about, but throughout the entire pregnancy, too, they were able to monitor his position.
Yeah.
They knew he was head down. Some people might worry, well, like, how do they know? Like this and that. Like, what if he's butt down? What if, like, you know, no, they know.
They can just feel his head.
They can feel. They can actually feel where his head's positioned. And so we knew the entire time. We didn't go into there thinking like, oh man, he's going to be out of position or this or that. Another thing, question you might have is like, well, what if his umbilical cord's around his neck? Well, actually, that can help him, like stabilize him and be protective when he comes out. And then they just undo it.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have to experience that, but.
And do we want to go to the, like when he finally came?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just like, actually I want to backtrack just because this was a big thing for me too, and goes to the intimacy, I feel like, of our experience with our 3 midwives. During contractions, I always wanted Kyle there, and he was always like right here with me. And they could see obviously how hard it was for me to get through them. And Ingrid and Johanna and Miranda would all like rub my feet or like rub my legs or just some of that like gentle touch to help me get through it, in addition to what Kyle was doing.
Yep. So I was able to stay in eyesight and very close, heart to heart, and they would, you know, help soothe by like, okay, we'll rub your feet or your calves or something like that to just like soothe.
Yeah. And that was really helpful too. And they normalized everything that was happening. How many times did I say, like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I just need it to be over, because it was hard.
It doesn't tickle.
No, it doesn't tickle.
Like if you have a home birth, you're going to experience a tremendous amount of pain going through it. But is that right?
Yeah.
The only thing we can say is, like, we've got a lot of friends who had hospital births very recently. They experienced a tremendous amount of pain. So we didn't understand, like, the idea of not doing a home birth for the upside of being able to have an epidural. It didn't make sense for us, because we need, like, if you're going to still experience the pain, why create the expense, the anxiety, or potential complication of what happens if you get too numb and you have to wait for it to wear off so you can actually do it? What happens if it doesn't work and you got to do it again?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think.
Well, she went through. There's different parts of labor, right? There's like early labor, there's active labor, and there's transition. So what happens, and what you guys who have not had kids yet and may find this helpful have experienced when you watch movie, is the transition. You always experience the transition. You always experience the pushing. Oh, it's time to push. Well, Kate's transition period lasted 2 hours. Transition period can last less than that. Transition period can last more than that. However, that's typically all you see. Her active labor part
was 15 hours.
Lasted like 15 hours. So, and then the entire labor was like 24.
Yeah, just over.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So when I was pushing him out, so we tried, different positions that Ingrid and the other midwives knew were really effective for the transition part of labor. And ultimately I delivered him on my hands and knees. And like, I don't even know if I have words for the moment that he came, what that felt like. We had been waiting for him, it felt like for so long. And, and then the 24 hours of labor, it was like, he was finally here, and he was finally going to be in our arms. And, all of the midwives were behind me, and they were ready. They were making their plan for birth, in case there was a need for
anything, catching him, getting the stuff ready for umbilical cord, all this stuff.
Yeah. They each had a role.
Yeah.
And like, throughout the entire process, I didn't feel any anxiety about what if something happens. I don't know if you felt that at all. I felt very calm in that regard, and just very, like, very confident that everything was going to be okay. And so he finally came, and they, like, the first thing they did was they were like, "Oh, he's here." And they handed him to me between my legs, and I got to hold him immediately. Like, he wasn't taken to be cleaned off or like anything like that until he was in my arms.
Yep.
Um,
And that's done so that he imprints and creates skin to skin like right away. That's what that's for. And it was just a cool experience because it happened and she looked up at me and you could see in her face it was all like, wait, is it over? Did that happen? Like, is this real? Like, what's going on? Like, she went from understanding like she's in labor to like, and like being in the moment of like how painful it was or this and that to like completely oblivious of was happening around her for like, 2 minutes.
Yeah. And then
you keep talking, I'm gonna plug this in.
Okay. I'll let Kyle talk about his experience too when he first heard Emmett and saw him. It was just such a like unbelievable experience that like I have a son and he was totally healthy, strong, no concerns at all for him. And after, so they of course had to like clean me up a little bit, and we had to get the placenta out and all of those things. And so during that time, Kyle got to do, I think like an hour or so maybe of skin to skin with Emmett. And that was, you can talk about that experience too, but I think that was huge in your bonding with Emmett, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So I witnessed him and was like recording him, descend. And his little head came out and I heard a little whimper and I lost it, man. I cried like, whoo! I cried like I had never cried in my life. It was intense. It was, you can't, it was intense. Like, I can't describe the emotion that was going through my entire body because it felt real, but it didn't feel real in what was going on. And then like she said, I got to hold him skin to skin for like an hour while they, finished up with the placenta and, getting her, like, examining her and making sure she was all good. And lucky for us, man, there weren't any complications, but there was no situation in which there was escalation of anything to create that atmosphere, to create any complications. Everything was always so calm, so, just even as the contractions got intense, even as she's like, I can't do this anymore, it still was never anything but said with calmness. Even, it was just a calm aura and everything around. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, when those moments came, and I know this is backtracking a little bit, but I remember, it's a little bit of a blur, but I remember Ingrid saying things like, that's Emmett, like, helping you to come into this world, right? Like, he's an active participant in this too. Or like, letting me know that even though things were painful, or because things were painful, maybe that means things are progressing and that I'm, we're that much closer to meeting Emmett. One thing I think is crazy and cool after he came was like, I had him in my arms and I had just been through 24 hours of like super intense sensations and pain, and all of that like went away. Like as soon as I saw him, and I was smiling and like able to laugh at Kyle's dad jokes again, and make jokes and, you know, all these kinds of things. And it's just amazing how that happens.
Yeah. It felt like a
after
team.
all of that. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Felt like a team.
We were absolutely a team.
So, you know, let's talk about everything after. So, first off, they at that point, you know, after they clean Kate up and get her, examine her, and I've been holding him this whole time. Now it's let's get him, latched for breastfeeding. So once they got him latched for breastfeeding, Kate was in her bed or in our bed, latched and breastfeeding. I went in and laid with her, and they cleaned up their stuff. They went downstairs, they ate because they hadn't eaten. So they ate downstairs in our kitchen, which, was fine. I mean, we were just upstairs. They cleaned up everything. But not only the stuff that they did, they started cleaning areas of our house, like cleaned our bathroom, cleaned the spare bedroom, came down and did the dishes,
they made our bed.
They made our bed for us. They put some stuff in the laundry and washer to prepare for everything, and
just to make sure that we didn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, except
for Emmett, and ourselves.
Yep. And then they left.
They weighed him. They did all newborn checks, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but then they left for the night.
Then they left for the night, and then they came back the next day and checked in on us. Finished up some, some
screens and
some
stuff.
Screens, the shot that he needed to get and stuff like that. But still, throughout that whole thing, is every time Kate had a question, just text Ingrid, get a text back. Okay, cool. We know how to handle this, or it's nothing to worry about. And that's kind of been, and they came over today. Yeah. I was like, yeah, they came over today as well. And, just filed all our stuff for his birth certificate and his social security number.
And I think, another huge thing for me has been, so Ingrid will see us until he's 6 weeks old. So she'll do checkups for him and that kind of thing. And she's also on call for us basically 24/7 for that time, which has already been super helpful. There's been a couple of times already in the middle of the night, I think both times at 2 a.m., that I had questions for her and she responds right away.
So quickly.
Right away. And, whatever it may be, she gives me suggestions or information or, answers whatever questions that I have. And that's been invaluable to me. And
she's always encouraging. So when you say something, she'll say oh, that's great news. He's doing exactly what he should be doing. And it's oh, okay.
This is exactly what we'd expect for a 4-day-old, it's just, and she's very encouraging to us as parents, very validating of concerns that we have. And
you might start fussing soon. Yeah. So with the biggest thing with that is understanding that when you have that hospital birth, you have that birth, and then they just send you home. They just send you home to kind of figure it out. And then all your advice is just coming from family and people around you and stuff like that. Again, this is not me. This is not us bashing hospital births at all. This is just us saying, for people who want knowledge about it, this was our experience and why we made the decision in the first place, and how happy we are that we did make the decision. Because again, I think, when we summarize everything that kind of occurred, the personal touch and like camaraderie between our midwife team and ourselves, the intimacy of having the experience within our own home. Okay, you hungry? I'll make something to eat. Oh, you need something to drink? We'll get something to drink. Like everything. Oh, most of your pregnancy was spent actually with the lights dimmed or darker. Typically, in a hospital, you're dealing with like fluorescent lights and all that. It's going to be hard to sleep in between contractions with something like that going on. What else? The follow up.
Yeah.
The care of like the availability, like to be on call that much and like answer. And again, for us, we feel like the only trade-off, that the only thing that we missed out on, I didn't miss out on, Kate missed out on, was like an epidural.
Yeah, which I'm, after experiencing it, I think I said to you during labor, didn't I? Like, if I was in the hospital and I had the opportunity, I'd probably take an epidural because it was painful. And so I'm thankful for myself because I knew what I wanted for my labor. I was thankful for myself that I was at home and that wasn't an option. Just because, again, like I know myself and I know if it had been an option and I was in that much pain, I would have taken it. Yeah.
So, I mean, that being said, we would say that we're advocates for people to have home births. We don't think if you don't have a home birth that there's anything wrong with it. Like if you have a hospital birth, great. I think you owe it to yourself to, when you're researching, to talk to a midwife about having a home birth. The upsides of just you can't replace how much more comfortable, how much more just safe, secure, and better experience you could have just by having it in your own space. Like familiar. It's yours. You walk around with no pants on if you want to. Like it's just yours. I think that's irreplaceable. And if you're fortunate enough to get somebody like Ingrid, and at least in Madison, I have this feeling that Ingrid, based on the fact that I feel like her network she's like, I feel like she's like Bill Belichick in football. Like Bill Belichick has all these people that he has out that have gone on to be coaches and stuff like that. Or, they've got like the trees or Greg Popovich in the NBA. So he, like, people who worked under Greg Popovich went off to do great things. I feel like she has that kind of network where they worked with her and now they're out doing their own thing and they're doing great at it. And there's just this network of people who all learned and carry her similar values, especially here in Madison. And I've gotten the feeling based on talking with her that the midwife network in general is very similar. So we think it should be something that you definitely should try out. If you're in Madison, Wisconsin, you should look up Ingrid Anderson. But I can't remember Miranda's last name or Johanna's last name.
I can't either.
Who are also, because Ingrid gets booked up.
Miranda's
a midwife and is great as well. And Johanna is training under Ingrid right now. And it was a great experience for all of them.
One last thing I think I'll say, and because I was really worried for myself postpartum, for like postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. And I think having this experience through pregnancy and the labor was super empowering and like really has really helped me postpartum to continue to feel that way. Empowered, confident, supported, and not experience that postpartum depression and anxiety, at least to the degree that I think I would have, again, just personally, if I had done it the more like traditional medical model in a hospital.
And on that note, I think we're going to get out of here because he's got to eat.
Little man's hungry.
He's hungry. But if you guys have any other questions, please reach out to us. We'd love to answer them. If you want more details on like cost, on certain kinds of experience, anything like that, you can reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about it and support. And guys, especially, I've got ideas on books you should read. I've got ideas on how you can handle certain things as far as preparing for the son, because your wife has 9 months, 10 months to like bond with him, to bond with that kid and understand that it's going to happen. So, techniques that I can, talk to you about that will help you as well. We love you guys. Thanks for watching.